I am so pleased to have a fireside chat with the leaders in front of me today. To ground the conversation, we wanted to start with two founders who built life science companies right here in Philly and are making intentional choices about how they grow, who they hire, and how they show up for the community. Both of them have hosted interns through Life Science Care's flagship program, Project On-Ramp. Side note, if you haven't done that yet, Caitlin is here. Inside their companies, and those internships didn't just check a box, they led to real outcomes and real careers. So I'm excited to stand here with Leigh Paul, CEO and founder of BioAnalysis, and Martin Lehr, co-founder and CEO of Context Therapeutics. We titled tonight Opening Doors, Opening Workforce, and Who Gets to Build What's Next. Before we get into your companies, gentlemen, I want to start here. And I'll start with Marty first. When you think back on your own journey, what door mattered most early on and who helped open it? I'll let Marty take up.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I think it goes without saying I had a bunch of great mentors over the years. But the biggest opportunity and kind of life changer for me, I grew up in Philadelphia and went to graduate school in New York City and loved New York City, but was really bad in the lab, like the worst hands ever. Could not cure cancer in mice when I was at a center, which that's only what they did, and everyone could cure cancer in mice. So I needed to find another job, and was trying to figure out like what skills were applicable to someone with bad hands, and heard about this industry called venture capital, and started applying to firms. And sort of in the back of my mind, wanted to move back to Philadelphia, maybe not necessarily on the timeline that ended up happening, but there was a small firm in Philadelphia called Osage. And they were sort of looking for someone, and I was sort of looking for a job, but I didn't know what venture capital was, and I really couldn't tell them that. So I was like, maybe I should intern and figure this thing out. And they kind of looked at me and said, like, that's a great idea, because we don't know if we like you either. And so I commuted for 6 months from New York, and it ended up being a great fit. It turns out, you know, if you're OCD, ADHD, and like science, venture capital's wonderful. You know, you get to every half hour speak to a new company in a different area. And so it was luck. I fell totally into venture capital. Only applied to one firm. And it ended up being a great informative training ground for me. And I think ultimately towards the end of my time there, as you think about your own personality, and again, you know, OCD, ADHD, like control, you know, a CEO is a pretty good gig if you have those personality traits and you like to work a lot. And so I think there was a little bit of a guiding hand and a lot of fate, and I'm just very happy it brought me back here.
All right. Also, thank you for having me. I do have that squirrel mentality that he has, that OCD and ADHD. So my journey is a little bit different. It's a lot of trials and tribulations. I'm an immigrant to this country, got my citizenship, and I grew up in the projects in Miami. If you know anything about Miami-Dade County, Liberty City, Polk and Beans projects, that's where I came from. What really got me started in science was they have a program called Upward Bound, and it's for inner city kids, underrepresented inner city kids, that actually give you a chance to go to see a lab. Now, mind you, I did not want to be in a lab. I just did it and had some fun. And the second opportunity came from a guy named Mike Gaines. He at the University of Miami. He's a chairman of biology. He just retired. He gave me a full scholarship to University of Miami to go study biology. It was the last thing I wanted to do. I wanted to do history, I wanted to do archaeology, but I ended up getting a degree in biology, and then I was like, what am I going to do? So I also started college very early. So I started 17, finished before I was 21. I had the best fake ID. I mean, for Miami, it works, okay? And you need an ID to, well, you don't really need an ID in Miami, but all right. So I taught high school for a year, and I went back to my old high school in which my teachers were like, well, Lake, you're not in jail? I'm like, Yeah, I'm not in jail. I've been in and out, but it's all right. I'm here. I'm now your colleague. And during that year, it was the best year of my life. My friends were still there. I mean, I made 33 grand, and that money was spent before it was even I even earned it. But anyways, I decided to go to graduate school, apply to 7 different PhD programs, got into like 5 of them, and I ended up somehow at Purdue. Now, coming from Miami to Purdue is a culture shock. Okay, it's the middle of nowhere. And I went there because I got a nice fellowship. And well, 6 years later, I finally got that PhD. And then I said, okay, let me do a postdoc. Went to the government postdoc, got fired from that. So this is a trend you'll see happening. Went back to Purdue. My man Charles Buck is the first hire. He hired me, but did not fire me, which is good. And then I went to another company, got fired, experienced a ton of racism. Finally, I got fired from 3 out of my 5 jobs. Came to Philly. I mean, I left Indiana like a rocket trace. I got blasted out of there. Landed in Philly, loved the city. Was in Fishtown. I'm kind of old for Fishtown now, but I enjoyed my time there. Got fired again. And then I said, to hell with this. I'm going to start a company. And I started BioAnalysis. And literally, I had a BioAnalysis LLC at gmail.com. And I started from nothing. Got my first employee in lab space in 2021, 1,500 square feet. Now we're at 34 people and growing, and 20,000 square feet. So with no investors. So me and my partner in life owns it, okay? So different route than you did. I just got fired a lot. And all my family are business people and women, all right? So they're like, welcome to the arena. So I moved to Philly and I fell in love with Philly because it's kind of like me. It's gritty, it's hard outside, but we have a big heart. And I love this city. I have more community here in Philly than in 7 years than I did in 15 years in Indiana. So for me, that's just welcoming.
That really is a fantastic story. I love hearing it because I feel like some people think that your journey should just be the straight shot. And really at Life Science Cares, we're always talking about what are the peaks and valleys that we take in order to get there. Like, you actually led me right into my next question is, you just kind of answered it, but why did you decide Philadelphia? And really want to talk about, I'm not going to tell them where. They don't know yet. I want you to tell me.
I told you, Philly is very community-centric neighborhoods. You get that good vibe. I mean, we want to beat each other up. Don't come in here and try to beat us up, right? For me, my lab is located in Kensington, okay? Again, I told you kind of preemptively that I grew up in the projects, right? And I saw what happens when folks move in. So if any one of you have ever been to Miami, you ever been to Wynwood, well, I've done a lot of dirty in there, okay? It used to be a rough neighborhood. Now you can get a house for less than $1 million, and it's like an arts area. It's really nice. The same can be done in a very constructive way. We're not going to gentrify the hell out of it. We're going to make sure the community is uplifted too. And one of our core missions that we do at BioAnalysis is community outreach. It is a big part of our tenets of mission. So, but Philly, it's good.
So I guess for us, I'm a lifelong Philadelphian. It's a little pathetic. I live 6 blocks from my parents downtown. Helpful with kids, not great in many other ways. And then the company's at 21st and Market. So both my wife and I are lifelong Philadelphians. The ability to build a company in the city is just tremendously exciting. As far as what we do, we're an oncology company. We develop antibodies that recruit the immune system to kill tumors. If you think about kind of core competencies in the Philadelphia region and the large pharmaceutical companies here, heavy emphasis on biologics, heavy emphasis on oncology, and then the proving ground at Penn, Jefferson, and other local institutions. So the ability to draw on very sophisticated human capital here has been tremendous. We've also been augmented by several recruiters who are here who've helped along the way. And then as we look at the next phase of the company's growth, which is soon to be late stage development, that puts a big transition in moving from startup talent to really, pharma, people who've worked in matrix organizations, they understand quality systems, and Philly has that in spades. And so I think we're very fortunate to run the company here. What we've never been able to do is really get capital here. And I know people complain about that, and I've just never cared. Like 30 streets next door, I'm in New York, typically a day a week. There's capital in New York, Boston, San Francisco. You can get yourself there. And what I've always found is capital will always find good ideas. That's not the hard part. The hard part is the good idea. And so I don't think there's anything stopping anyone from starting companies here. We have wonderful office space. It is incredibly competitive, maybe even cheaper than the suburbs. And we're proximate to every single rail line feeding the city. And so we draw talent from probably a 60-mile radius. And so I think there's a lot of unique attributes of Philadelphia. We don't do a great job of emphasizing them broadly. And the more we can do that, the more talent, the more capital we'll get to come here.
I'm not gonna lie, when we were told that I was moving to Pennsylvania from Massachusetts, I was like, why? And then my husband brought me to the Reading terminal, and I was like, yes, that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted. So I too have, really embraced Philadelphia. I feel like this is more of my home than I have lived anywhere in my life. So I can totally relate to that. You talked a little bit about capital. Are you feeling a thaw? Is this happening, Blake?
Well, again, I haven't taken capital, but there's a lot of interest we have fielded, and yes, there's a thaw. I mean, we just saw Pfizer with them on the Cira. I just saw Lilly scoop up Osiris or whatever. Orna. I mean, there's two deals. We already have two companies with $1 billion went to IPO this week alone. So there's always been dry powder out there. Now I think they're starting to pick it up a little bit. And I think you're going to see a lot of movement probably by Q3 of this year.
Yeah, I think it's always context dependent. If you're a private company, venture capital has been hit hard, really hard the last couple of years. And so capital for particularly seed and Series A companies is hard to come by. As Lake mentioned, there's been a bunch of exits, but there hasn't been a bunch of IPOs. And so with a restricted exit pathway, these funds are just stuck in deals. And until they can exit those deals, give money to their investors, those investors aren't going to give them more money for their next fund. And so we've seen a number of pharma companies recognize that particular issue, sort of a collapsing venture market. And Eli Lilly is the best example where they're just stepping in and buying companies and willing to pay a premium. And it's not just because they want that product, but they know that if they pay that premium, it will go to the venture funds, it will go back to their investors, and then the cycle will repeat. And so they've been doing a wonderful job of stepping up. The public market where my company plays, so different than Lake, we light money on fire. We've raised $200 million in the last couple of years. Public markets have done exceedingly well over the last 18 months. That has been driven by very large M&A, the Metzeras of the world, et cetera. There's still two deals hanging out there, RevMed and Abivax, which combined would be about $50 billion worth of capital that would get recycled into the system. And so investors in the public space have a very different problem. They need to put money to work and are really struggling to do that because the last thing they want to do is return money to their investors. So, and it's a little bit hit or miss within the space. If you're a sub $100 million market cap company, capital is still very hard to come by. The funds have gotten very large. They want to put $20 to $30 million per fund to work in a deal, which the back of the envelope math means you need to raise basically a minimum of $150 million for them to look at you. And so you need to be of a certain size. So those dynamics are kind of opposed right now in the private and public. But I think over the next year, as you continue to have this cycle of capital, particularly on the private side, occurring, it'll stabilize to a more normal level.
Actually, I can back up what he's saying because last year we saw a tremendous dip in the preclinical testing, but our clinical testing went up 3,000%. because all the assets who are clinical stage, moving to phase 1, phase 2, later stages, they're really grinding through that. Now we're seeing a trickle in increase now with preclinical work coming in. That's why I'm saying there's a little thaw out there. So that's that focus in that seed, I think, is coming back a little bit.
And locally, I mean, I think the biggest thing to happen is the emergence of Lilly Gateway Labs. And it's literally right behind everyone at 23rd and Market. You know, that model where it's a startup incubator that leads into Lilly, you know, mothership that will have capital associated with it. That's sort of the stimulus we need locally.
Yeah.
And it's not just here. I mean, really, by the way, Boston's hurting too. San Francisco's hurting. You have mass layoffs in both of those geographies. Philadelphia, while you know there's some people in here who are in between jobs, has fared actually relatively well compared to those geographies. And so we're seeing not just green shoots, but really shovels in the ground in Philadelphia that I think will be tremendous over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, I love hearing a thought because that means companies have more time and capacity to invest in our Project On-Ramp interns, because that's always what my number one priority is.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my next question. As investors, both of you, into Project On-Ramp, really what I want to know is what made you say yes to our program, and what keeps you here?
Well, you pressured me into it. I didn't really have space for it, but I said yes. And now we have more office space, so we have more interns. It was wonderful. We had a remarkable young woman named Michelle who grew up in West Philly, went to West Catholic, first generation college student, goes to the University of Pennsylvania, is currently a senior, and literally had no idea what the biotech world was. Knew she wanted to get into it. No one in her network who could provide any sort of reasonable advice from a career perspective. And so she came in eyes wide open. Someone in her family told her, you should really think about being a PharmD, which I quickly talked her out of because she had no interest in that whatsoever. And so we basically spent the summer on half of our team focused on career development for her, trying to teach her all the different aspects of our industry to say, what do you think you would be interested in? And if you can round that down to one or two things, we can help guide you in those particular areas, orient you to a first job, graduate school, et cetera. And then the second thing we did was a long-term project over the summer, which was relating to our core product in the ovarian cancer space. So incredibly engaged, incredibly inquisitive, way smarter than I am. Which was very impressive, very composed young lady. And so we were blown away. I will say what the program does for anyone considering it, it is a curated list of interns. What you get is basically a list of finalists who are one more unbelievable than the next. And then you're just picking the person who basically gives up and agrees with you because they have options better than you. And so it's been great, and we look forward to continuing to participate.
Thank you.
So, well, Charles is the one that pressured me into doing it. We do a lot of our programs. Obviously, I'm a big supporter of internships, and because of my background. We have had several on-ramp students over the years, and we literally, I think we hired 2 of them now. Yeah, 2. So we want to hire. I mean, there's a lot of training. We train them as scientists.
Wait, I just want to interrupt you. They didn't just hire the intern. What I was communicated to is that BioAnalysis had a gap, had someone leave the company. They did not post the role. They did not, do a search. They called their Project On-Ramp intern and said, hey, you want in? And that is such success at Life Science Cares for Project On-Ramp. So thank you for doing that.
Again, that was Charles, all right? That was not me. I just say, he just tells me, and I'm like, okay, that's great, Charles. Let's just keep doing it. It is outreach, and anything to do with outreach, I am for. And he does it. So we also, our company is very young, and we want to give them that experience. So a lot of folks do not want to go to grad school, or can't go to grad school because of the funding and so forth. And they come here to BioAnalysis, and they get a real job, a real 401k, real healthcare. We pay for all of that, and a great learning environment because we will train you. And again, the interns who are doing well, that's time that we train them. So there's less time for them to get ramped up to what we're doing. So Project OnRamp has been a fantastic source of employers and workforce development for us. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. What we learned today is that opening doors doesn't happen in isolation. It takes employers, institutions, community partners, and people willing to show up for one another. And you doing that for us, for you, for our city, both of you, really is so meaningful. So I want to thank you for truly leading your companies and their culture, so that way you are investing whatever pressure I can do more, I will always do. But what I know is there's volunteers in this room that can also put that pressure on your companies. I like to say I'm the Nepo auntie that wants to get everyone that gig, right? I didn't have that access. I didn't have an auntie that could, call her friend that's a CEO. I have CEOs that are on our board that have called me and said, hey Jen, can you get my kid a job? And I'm like, oh my goodness, that's why Project OnRamp is so necessary. So thank you, Marty and Leigh, for being here for us. If everyone could please take a moment to grab a beverage or a snack. I do not want to hurt cats again, so we will just take a quick 2-minute break to change over for our panel discussion. Thank you too for our sponsors, the Higgins Group, Rockland Immunochemicals, and of course B Labs as hosts. We're so very excited to be here and grateful for this opportunity.